You need to call the realtor first thing in the morning, before his body even gets cold. We need to finalize the sale of the house immediately.
I was still hooked to a ventilator in the ICU, my lungs barely moving, when I heard my son whisper to his wife, "The old man's finally fading. Call the realtor before his body even gets cold." They didn't know I could hear every word. They didn't know that while they were measuring my living room for new furniture, I was measuring the depth of their betrayal. A week later, I survived against all odds. I took a taxi home, only to find my favorite reading chair, the one my late wife gave me, sitting in a pile of trash on the curb. My house was already being gutted. My son looked at me not with relief, but with pure, unadulterated disappointment that I was still breathing. He didn't even offer me a glass of water. He just asked if I had remembered the code to the wall safe. If you believe that greed should never go unpunished, subscribe to our channel for more stories of ultimate justice and incredible life turnarounds. They thought I was just a senile 65-year-old with a dusty, unimportant job. For 40 years, I was the head of the bank archives. I didn't just file papers, I buried secrets. I knew about the ghost debts, massive, forgotten liabilities from liquidated companies that the bank had written off decades ago. I had spent years legally acquiring these debts for pennies, hiding them inside a complex family trust that looked like a gold mine on the surface. "Dad, we were just cleaning up," my daughter-in-law stammered, hiding a brochure for the cheapest nursing home she could find. I just smiled, a cold, calculated smile they didn't recognize. "Don't worry," I said softly. "I've decided to settle everything. I've prepared the transfer papers. Everything I own, the house, the assets, the trust, it can all be yours today. You just need to sign as the primary successors." Their eyes lit up with the same hunger vultures have for a carcass. They had no idea that by signing those papers, they weren't just taking my house. They were legally becoming the sole guarantors of a $2 million debt. I watched them through the kitchen door. They were practically fighting over who would be the first to sign the documents. Igor, my only son, didn't even glance at the schedule of liabilities tucked away at the very back of the folder. His eyes were glued to the first page, Transfer of Total Assets and Real Estate. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" he asked, though he couldn't hide the greedy smirk on his face. "You won't regret moving into that quiet facility we found for you. It's for your own good, you know. You need professional care." "I'm just tired, Igor," I whispered, leaning heavily on my cane to play the part of a broken old man. "I've spent 40 years buried in bank archives. It's a heavy burden to carry. Now it's your turn to manage the family legacy." The moment the ink was dry, the mask of loving family vanished instantly. Olena didn't even wait for me to leave the room before she started calling a contractor. She wanted to knock down the walls of my study to build a home cinema. My life's work, thousands of rare books and historical records, was being tossed into cardboard boxes like literal trash. "We need more space," Olena said, walking past me as if I were a piece of old furniture. "The moving truck for your things arrives at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Make sure you're ready. We've already paid the first month at the nursing home, so don't make it difficult." I retreated to my bedroom and locked the door. I wasn't crying. I was checking my watch. In the cold world of high finance, once a name is registered in the system as a primary guarantor, the predators wake up. I had spent my entire career watching how banks hunt down debtors with surgical precision. Now, I had redirected those hunters toward my own front door. That night, I heard them popping champagne in the living room. They were laughing, toasted to their new life as millionaires. They had no idea that at 9 a.m. sharp, the bank's automated system would flag a change of legal responsibility on a dormant, high-interest account. The trap was set, and they had walked into it with a smile. The sun hadn't even risen when the loud banging on my bedroom door started. "Time to go, Dad. The movers are here, and the taxi to the facility is waiting," Igor shouted. He didn't even use my name. To him, I was just a task to be finished, a box to be checked off so he could claim his prize. As I walked into the hallway, I saw the true extent of their greed. My house, where I had lived for 40 years, looked like a crime scene. Rugs were rolled up, paintings were taken down, and the smell of expensive champagne from their celebration still hung in the air. Olena was already pointing at my vintage wooden floors, telling a contractor, "Rip this out. I want white marble, only the best for the new owners." "You're very efficient, Olena. Efficiency is money, Victor. I hope you like your new room at the home. It's small, but at your age, you don't really need a view, do you?" Igor escorted me to the door, his hand on my shoulder, not out of affection, but to push me out faster. But just as we reached the porch, a courier pulled up. The man handed Igor a thick, bright red envelope marked, "Urgent, legal action required." "What's this?" "Just some boring paperwork for the new owner. Probably just confirming the transfer we signed yesterday. You should read it carefully, though. Every single page. I'll look at it after we finish the renovation plans. Go on, the taxi is waiting. Don't miss your check-in." I sat in the back of the cab, watching my house disappear in the rearview mirror. I wasn't going to that nursing home. I had redirected the taxi to a quiet hotel across town. I knew that in exactly 3 hours, the first automated "account frozen" alert would hit Igor's phone. The vultures were about to find out that their feast was poisoned. 2 hours later, Igor and Olena were sitting in the most expensive restaurant in the city. They ordered vintage wine and the finest steaks, laughing about how easy it was to get rid of the old man. Igor was already looking at pictures of a brand-new Italian sports car on his phone, calculating how much he could get for my house. "To the new owners of the mansion," Olena said, clinking her glass against his. "Finally, we can live the life we actually deserve. No more waiting for inheritance." But when the waiter brought the bill, the atmosphere changed instantly. Igor handed over his gold credit card with a smug grin. A minute later, the waiter returned, looking uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, sir, but the transaction was declined. Do you have another card?" Igor laughed it off, though his face reddened. "That's impossible. Try it again. It must be a system error." It failed again. And then his second card failed too. Igor pulled out his phone to check his banking app, but his face went from red to a ghostly, sickly pale. Every single one of his personal accounts, his savings, his salary, his rainy day fund, showed a balance of 0. Next to the numbers was a small, terrifying red icon. "Accounts frozen, pending legal resolution." "What is happening?" Olena hissed, her voice trembling as she saw the look on his face. "Check the trust account, the one your father gave us." Igor logged into the new trust. His eyes widened. The assets section wasn't empty, but it was locked behind a massive, flashing warning. He finally opened the digital version of that red envelope he had ignored on the hallway table. It wasn't a welcome letter to the world of the wealthy. It was an acceleration notice. By signing those papers, they hadn't just taken the house. They had merged their personal financial identities with a debt structure that was now collapsing. Because the original owner had transferred the responsibility, the bank's automated system had triggered a total freeze to protect the creditors. "He didn't give us a fortune, Olena. He gave us a poison pill. We are now legally the primary debtors for $2 million, and the bank just seized our life savings as the first installment." "He's an old man, Igor. He can't do this," Olena screamed as they burst into the hallway. Call the lawyer. There has to be a way to cancel the signature. Igor spent the next 3 hours on the phone, but every lawyer he called gave him the same grim answer. You signed a voluntary successor agreement. In the eyes of the law, you didn't just inherit property, you stepped into his shoes. All his legal obligations are now yours. If he owed money to the bank, you now owe that money to the bank. Mr. Igor, we are here to perform an emergency inventory of the assets linked to the debt. Since your personal accounts didn't cover even 5% of the outstanding interest, we are moving to secure the physical collateral. You can't just come in here. This is our house. Actually, according to the trust documents your father prepared, this house is listed as a primary guarantee for a debt that is now in default. As of 3 o'clock today, the bank has initiated a forced sale process. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. Igor looked at the beautiful living room he had been so eager to renovate. He saw the empty spaces where my furniture used to be, the furniture he had thrown away. He realized that in his hurry to kick me out, he had destroyed the very things that made the house a home. Now, he was being kicked out too, but with a massive debt hanging around his neck like a noose. "Where is he?" Igor whispered, his voice cracking. "Where is my father?" But I was far away, watching the sunset from a hotel balcony, my phone switched off. I had taught them many things over the years, but today was the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate the man who knows where the bodies are buried. The next morning, the nursing home called Igor. They were angry. "Mr. Igor, your credit card for your father's deposit was declined. If you don't settle the bill by noon, we cannot accept him." Igor screamed into the phone. "He's not even here. I don't know where he is." Quote, "He must have hidden something. Gold, cash, jewelry, anything. He worked in a bank for 40 years, Igor. He couldn't just have debts. He's tricking us." She found a small, locked wooden box in the back of the pantry. With a heavy kitchen knife, she pried it open, hoping for a miracle. Inside, there was no gold. There were only old photographs of Igor as a child and a single, handwritten note from me. It read, "Igor, you once asked me why I kept so many old files. I told you they were my insurance. You thought I meant money. I meant character." A man who forgets his father's love for a piece of real estate is a man who doesn't understand the value of anything. Olena threw the note across the room. "I don't care about his lessons. We need to find him and force him to sign it back." Recovery Unit. Notice of immediate asset liquidation. Vultures. "We have to go to the police. This is fraud. He tricked us into signing those papers. He knew about the debt." "The police?" "Olena, we signed those documents in front of a notary. I told the lawyer on the phone yesterday that I was fully aware of the assets and liabilities. I lied to make the process go faster so I could kick him out. The law doesn't care if I'm an idiot. It only cares that I signed." Just then, a heavy knock echoed through the empty hallway. Igor opened the door to find a man in a delivery uniform. He wasn't holding a subpoena or a debt notice. He was holding a large, steaming pepperoni pizza and a cold bottle of soda. "I didn't order this. It's already paid for." The sender left a message on the receipt. "He's mocking us," Olena shrieked, throwing a slice of pizza against the wall. "He's watching us lose everything, and he's laughing." She was right. I was laughing. But the joke was only beginning. They still hadn't realized that the $2 million debt wasn't the final blow. The real poison was buried in the second document they signed, the one regarding the assumption of past legal costs. Every hour they spent fighting this in court was adding thousands of dollars to their bill. They were digging their own graves, and they couldn't stop. The final morning arrived with the sound of heavy machinery. Igor and Elena woke up to see a massive foreclosure sale sign being hammered into their front lawn. A group of professional movers, hired by the bank, began carrying out the remaining furniture, the expensive sofas, and the designer tables they had bought on credit, thinking they were already rich. "You can't take the bed, I'm still using it, Igor. I just got a notice for a wage garnishment order. $2 million? What the hell have you done? We can't have this kind of legal mess associated with our company. Don't bother coming in on Monday." "Vultures, sir. Your father retired weeks ago, but he did leave a package for you. He said you might come looking for a way out." "Hello, Igor. Are you ready for the final lesson? If you're watching this, Igor, it means you've officially lost everything. You're probably looking at those boxes and wondering why. Those aren't just papers. They are the records of every person I helped during my 40 years at the bank. People who were swallowed by debt, just like you are now. But unlike you, they were good people who just had bad luck." Igor fell to his knees in the dust of the storage unit. Olena was screaming, kicking at the boxes, sending cascades of paper flying through the air. "The $2 million debt is real," I continued. "But here is the archive secret. That debt was owed to a charitable foundation I set up years ago. By signing those papers, you didn't just become debtors, you became the sole donors to a fund that helps elderly people who have been abandoned by their children. Every cent the bank takes from your salaries, every dollar from the sale of my house, will go to pay for the medical care and housing of parents whose children treated them like trash. You wanted my legacy? You got it. You are now the reluctant benefactors of the very people you tried to humiliate. I didn't steal your future, Igor. I simply used your greed to fund a better one for others. As for me, I've changed my name and moved to a place where the sun always shines. My bank accounts are modest, but they are clean, and they are invisible to you. Don't bother looking for me. I'm not a father to a vulture, and you are no longer a son to me." The screen went black. The silence in the locker was broken only by the sound of sirens in the distance, the bank's legal team coming to seize the last of the assets. Igor looked at his hands, the same hands that had eagerly signed his own destruction. He had wanted the crown, but he ended up with the chains. I was finally free. And they? They were exactly where they deserved to be, lost in the archives of their own greed. 6 months later, I sat on a small balcony overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. The air was salty and warm, a stark contrast to the cold, windowless basement of the bank archive where I had spent half my life. I sipped my coffee and opened a local newspaper from my hometown online. There was a small article in the business section. Local couple declares final bankruptcy after failed mansion renovation. It didn't mention their names, but I knew. Igor was now working 2 jobs, one as a delivery driver and another cleaning offices at night, just to keep up with the interest payments. Olena had moved back in with her mother, her dreams of white marble floors replaced by the reality of a cramped studio apartment. They were living the minimalist life they had planned for me, but without the dignity. I felt no guilt. In the world of auditing, every ledger must balance. They brought the greed. I provided the consequences. I had spent my life protecting the bank's assets, but my final act was protecting my own soul. I had turned their betrayal into a lifeline for dozens of elderly people who now had a warm bed and a hot meal, thanks to the Vulture Fund. Now I spend my days walking along the beach and reading the books I managed to save. The silence is no longer lonely. It's peaceful. I realized that the greatest inheritance isn't a house or a bank account. It's the ability to sleep at night with a clear conscience. Looking back at everything, I have to ask, do you think I did the right thing? Or was my revenge too cold? What would you have done if you heard your own children plotting your end, while you were fighting for your life. If you enjoyed this journey of justice and betrayal, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our next incredible story. Smash that like button if you think the vultures got what they deserved, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. I read every single one of them. The end. Thank you for listening.